Hi, it's me, Amanda, the Lazy Stitcher, but today we're going to be talking about books, and specifically books that I read in July. Probably notice I'm kind of playing catch up right now when it comes to videos, and figured I needed to do a July recap. I read an okay amount of books in July. It was less than June. June was amazing, and then July it started to go down. In August, I didn't read much at all, but I'm still going to do this July and August separately, because why not? So the first book I read in July was Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is a pretty popular one, and Emily Henry in general is rather popular, and I know this is a lot of people's favorite from her. So it's the first one I decided to try. Now, I didn't realize that this is also a summer read. It's about books, obviously, but I didn't realize it was also taking place during the summer. So, basically all of her books are summer reads, or at least all of the, contemporary romance ones. So, basic premise of this one is we've got Nora. Nora lives in New York, and she is an agent, a literary agent. So she works for authors and helps them, get published and get editors, etc. Then she had a run-in with this editor named Charlie, and they had not a good first impression on each other. Well, then Nora ends up going on a trip with her sister that her sister suggested. Her sister's pregnant with their third child, and they are going to Sunshine Falls, North Carolina, and they're kind of living an experience of one of Nora's authors. They're like living the experience of a book that she wrote, and there's something up with Nora's sister, but we don't know what it is. And also, guess what? Charlie happens to be from that town, so he's there too. So, you got things going on. The other thing I should mention about Nora is kind of like the Hallmark romance movies, specifically the Christmas ones, where the guy's like this business guy in New York, and he has a fiance, but she's cold, and she loves New York, and she's, tough, but she's not warm and loving, and then he goes to his hometown and meets a girl there who's charming, and Nora's like the fiance that gets dumped for a girl from a small town every time. So that's another thing that I think is important to mention about this book. So I thoroughly enjoyed this book. It it's a good romance, and we have some good sister drama, and there's nothing in particular I didn't like about it, to be honest. I gave it 4.25 stars, because you can on Storygraph. But again, it's not like there was anything wrong with it. It wasn't my favorite, but I really enjoyed it. Next I read Because of Winn-Dixie by Kate DiCamillo. Now, this one is a children's book. Probably older elementary school to middle grade, I guess. Young middle grade is what I would consider this book. And it is about a girl named Opal who has moved to a new town. She doesn't know anybody. She doesn't have any friends. And there's a dog that gets into the local Winn-Dixie, which is a supermarket chain. And she manages to convince her father, who is a preacher, to let her keep the dog. And thanks to this dog, she starts making friends. And it's not what you would expect a little girl to make for friends. She makes friends with the local librarian, and she makes friends with this local lady who is a recovered alcoholic, and she's friends with this guy who works at the pet store. It's really sweet. I've seen the movie, and I really enjoyed the movie. And then I thought the book was really good. I didn't, it's obviously too young for me. But I did, there was something I didn't like about it. The librarian character has a very sad story about her family who are from the South and the Civil War. Now, obviously, there's lots of situations with the Civil War, with sadness that happened for the Southerners. However, as someone, I get a little, I have a bit of trepidation with things like that because it definitely kind of paints the tale of like, oh, those mean Northerners, those mean Yankees, like being so mean. And it's like, the character, I understand that what happened to the character was very sad, but also, like, there was slavery down there. It's not so cool. Like, that's what the war was about. So I just don't have a ton of, like, I have sympathy, but not, like, I just didn't really like how that character talked about things, I guess you could say. And I think you have to be careful with younger children's books about it's harder to explain that kind of nuance. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. I think that nuance is important and it's good to know about. But I also think that with a younger children's book, you have to make sure that the child is ready to talk about that kind of nuance. And not all kids are. So, there you go. I gave it 3.5 stars. The next book I read was the Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. I know this one's kind of like old news, but I was obviously I've been going kind of I had been going for summer reads, right? Okay, this one centers around Olive and Ethan. All right, so Olive's sister marries Ethan's brother. And she and Ethan have just never gotten along. They've always just sort of clashed and just didn't really like each other. Bad first impression, I guess you could say. And so her sister marries his brother, and then everybody gets sick from the food at the wedding, except for Ethan, who refused to eat it because it was buffet and he doesn't eat buffets. And Olive, and I forget her reason for not eating it, might have been an allergy. Okay, so Olive and Ethan end up going on the intended honeymoon for their brother and sister, respectively. So they're on this trip together, and they're gonna try to enjoy it, gosh darn it. And it's a fun enemies to lovers romp, basically. Because they're in, like, Hawaii, somewhere beautiful. I forget where exactly. And trying to enjoy the beauty while also clashing with each other. And super fun. Really great. Like, if you like a good, like, cute contemporary romance, I think this one's a great choice. I know some people didn't like a part of the ending, and I kind of actually agree, but anyway, overall, really enjoyable experience. I give this one 4.25 stars as well, so check it out. I also read a book I've had for a long time just sitting on my Kindle, and it's called Dirty Little Secrets by C.J. Amololu. This book centers around a girl named Lucy, and Lucy is a teenager. This is a young adult book, by the way, and she lives with her mother. Her mother is a hoarder, and the house is disgusting. She can't clean it because her mother won't let her. Her mother is also, I would say, abusive, neglectful, not a good mother. Yet her mother is also a nurse who takes care of other people, and everyone thinks her mom's great, but at home the whole situation is a completely different story. And I thought this was a really, I love the concept of this book. Oh, and I think this happens in the beginning too. One day, Lucy comes home and her mother has died. But Lucy doesn't know what to do because the house is such a mess, and she's very embarrassed about it and doesn't want people at school to know how messy her house is. So she decides she's going to frantically try to clean the house before she actually tells anyone that her mother died. Yeah, exactly. The concept of this book, I really like the concept of a teenager living with a hoarder parent and being in a stuck situation, and you feel really bad for her, but at the same time, it's like, your mom died, and your plan is to just, you're too embarrassed about the house. Like, I bet a teenager really would think like that, but at the same time, it's so utterly ridiculous. I just could never get over that when it came to this book. Like, really, you're just not okay. And the book ends up in a situation where I wasn't surprised at the ending because I felt like it was the only thing that could possibly happen after everything else in this book, unfortunately. It's a quick read. It wasn't terrible. I gave it 3.5 stars, but it's the foundation on which it is built is kind of weak. Oh, I actually did finish one audiobook. I listened to Terciel and Eleanor by Garth Nix. As you might have noticed, I do really like Garth Nix. I like the Old Kingdom fantasy series that he's created, and this one takes place before Sabriel. Terciel and Eleanor are Sabriel's parents, and I thought it gives you a little more background, a little more lore. You get to see like the cute love story between her parents. I really enjoyed it. I thought this one, it has enough interest to keep you going throughout the whole thing. Like Clariel, really, really slow, but this one, it kept me going, even though it was a prequel and you generally know what's going to happen. I really liked it. I recommend it if you're into this series. Check it out. And then I read Daughter of No Worlds by Carissa Broadbent. Wish me luck on holding up this book, because it is a honker of a book, I have to say. So, and they only get bigger. So this one is about a character named Tisana. Tisana is a slave. The region that her family lives in got conquered, but she has magical powers. So, and you can tell somewhat from her appearance that she has these magical powers. So she manages to save herself by being like, look, I have magical powers. I'm worth more. She is purchased by someone, and then he has said to her, oh, if you're worth this much to me. And she decides she's going to save up her money to buy her freedom. Well, unfortunately, that plan goes awry, and she ends up having to leave and go to a neighboring country and to join a magical order. And in order to actually learn magic, she needs help, and she gets help from a guy. He has quite the name. Maxantarius. They call him Max. And he is well-versed in magic, and she works really hard, and it kind of goes from there. There's a lot more details to it. This is a fantasy romance, adult. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was my first foray into Carissa Broadbent. I know her new series, Crowns of Inaxia, is really popular, but I thought I'd check out this one first. And I found myself sucked in. The language, it's easy to read. Like, some fantasy can be really hard to read. This one's an easy to read book. The writing style is very digestible, and it's not a difficult world to learn about or get into. I honestly really enjoyed it. It is long though, and I do personally have a harder time with long books sometimes because they take me forever. And when it takes me a long time to finish a book, I lose momentum. Apparently I gave this one 4.25 stars too. I was really into 4.25 stars this reading period. I'm surprised. But I am looking forward to continuing the series fairly soon. And then I read with my kids, and normally I don't talk about the books that I read with my kids, but I thought I would talk about this one. I read How to Train Your Dragon by Cressida Cowell. It's important to know that if you want to check out this series, it's nothing like the movies. The movies are completely different. My kids absolutely love the movies, so I thought, oh, let's get the books and read the books because, that's a fairly logical thing. They are two different things. Hiccup is pretty much the same character, and maybe his dad's stoic, But that's about it. Toothless is completely different. The whole plot is completely different. They barely resemble each other. So that's good to know. In this one, in the book, the kids are basically, they have to go and catch dragons because that's what they do. They steal dragons from their dragon home, and then the dragons are pets and they train them. The dragons are smaller, not really big enough to ride, and they use them to help hunt and whatnot. And so that's how the book starts off. And there's also a big initiation test where the kids have to have their dragons well trained enough. So Hiccup gets Toothless, and Toothless is completely different. The dragons actually have a language called Dragonese that they speak, and Toothless is one of the only people, as far as I know, the only character who can talk to the dragons. But Toothless is awful. He's like such a little jerk. He's very selfish and very like lazy, and yet also arrogant and full of himself. And yeah, like I said, it is extremely different from the movie. I gave it like 3.5 stars. It was cute and entertaining, but it's not like amazing. The next book I read is Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade. Now, I was really looking forward to this book because I love the concept of it. So we've got a character named April, and April is a really big fan of a certain TV show. And she ships a particular, she has a particular couple that she ships in the show, right? And then Marcus is an actor on the show, yet he writes fan fiction for the show in secret. And he and April have been online friends that talk about the show together, right? But she doesn't know that. And then there is an incident where April posts a picture of her cosplay of the character from a show. And then people are really mean to her because she's plus size. Well, Marcus is like, oh no, I think you're lovely, let's go on a date. And pretty soon he figures out that she's his online friend, but she doesn't know. That's the concept of this book. And it runs from there. Now, there's some things to note about this book, and I think it's kind of important. So it's very clear that the TV show that they're talking about is based on Game of Thrones. Now, the book mentions Game of Thrones too. I think it's to try to throw you off, but like, it's Game of Thrones. It's clearly supposed to be Jaime and Brienne, which, I'll be honest with you, I am a hardcore Jaime and Brienne shipper myself. So I was like, oh, this is great. Like, the whole thing seems like I would love this, okay? And then that makes Marcus Nikolai, the actor who played Jaime on Game of Thrones, right? Well, like, it seems like it's right up my alley, but there are certain things, it also, because of all this, it makes me a little uncomfortable, right? Because, like, I don't know, is April, like, a self-insert for Olivia Dade? I don't know, but that makes me a little, like, because, like, what's going on here, right? It's strange. Like, do you have a crush on Nikolai? What's going on there? Like, it's a little strange, in my opinion, because of that alone. I just kind of couldn't get over that. There are also other people who don't like the fact that he, as an actor, was writing fan fiction. I personally don't mind that part, but other people didn't like that. So the whole concept was kind of weird. I didn't like it because I did not like April. April was just not... I felt like she was unnecessarily harsh with Marcus a lot. And she was clearly not a good communicator at all. And she just wasn't very nice to him. And she would get really set off by certain things he said based off of barely anything. And I just felt it was very unfair to him. And meanwhile, Marcus is a really genuinely good guy. He fell overall I really liked him, but he did fall a little bit flat. He needed just a teensy bit more personality injected to him, you know? So I ended up giving this 3 stars. It was disappointing. I'm worried I had my expectations too high. Final book for the month is The Burnt House by Faith Kellerman. So this is another Peter Decker novel. I liked this more than the other one I read, so I'll say that. Now, basic concept of this one is there is a tragic plane crash, and as you might guess, unfortunately everyone on the plane dies. But there's a mystery because there's a flight attendant who she has disappeared, and it is initially assumed that she was on the plane. But evidence comes out, a little bit of evidence comes out, and there is suspicion that something else more sinister happened to her, and that she didn't actually perish in the plane crash. This was honestly pretty good. Like I said, it was better than the other one I read, and it does the basic, like, detectiving throughout the book. The other book I read, which I think was Blind Man's Bluff, I didn't like that one as much because there were holes, and, like, I saw them. And, like, I shouldn't be smarter. Like, I shouldn't be able to figure out, wait, you should be doing this. You know what I mean? Like, I shouldn't be that smart. I'm not trying to insult myself, I'm just saying. And I also don't think I'm, like, some kind of special genius. It shouldn't be too hard to outsmart me. But with this one in particular, it was a lot more thorough, and there was only one thing, like, one character mentions having a message from the lady who is missing, but no one asks him, can we listen to that message? And it could have easily been explained as just saying, could we listen to that message? Oh no, sorry, I deleted it. But no one ever, like, asks him that. So I thought that was a little bit like, come on. But otherwise, I thought it was pretty solid. I enjoyed it. I gave it 3.5 stars. It wasn't, like, amazing, but if you want your basic, like, detective kind of a story, here you go. Okay, that's it. That's what I read in July. A lot more than I remembered, to be honest. The August video is going to be disappointing because it's going to be a lot shorter. But I hope you're all doing well. If you actually made it through this entire video, thank you, congratulations. And I know that this is my July recap, but because it's actually autumn now, or about to be, you just give me a little, like, leaf or something. All right, have a good one. Bye.